My name is Michael. I'm 32 years old, and I've always been the black sheep of my family. Despite that, I drove to my parents' 40th anniversary celebration at the Oak Room genuinely hoping to reconnect. But the look on their faces wasn't joy, it was cold shock. "You were not invited," my father hissed before calling security to get this beggar out. He had no idea the so-called beggar had paid for half the party. That was his final mistake. I went home and systematically canceled over $75,000 of financial support I'd been giving them in secret. Within minutes, my phone was lighting up with calls and a fist was pounding on my front door. I grew up in a postcard-perfect house in suburban Chicago, where appearances always mattered far more than the truth inside. My parents, William and Eleanor, built their lives around status and social climbing. From the outside, we looked like the perfect suburban family. Matching sweaters and Christmas photos, a flawless lawn my father worshipped every weekend. But inside those walls, I always felt like I was wearing someone else's shoes that never quite fit. My brother, Ethan, was the firstborn golden child who followed our father's path, becoming a corporate lawyer. My sister, Olivia, became the doctor our mother always dreamed of being before she married Dad. And then there was me, Michael, the tech nerd who loved coding and building things from scratch. The disappointment in my parents' eyes when I chose to study computer science instead of law or medicine is something I can still see when I close my eyes at night. "Computers are a hobby, not a career," my father would say, his voice dripping with condescension. "No one makes real money that way unless you're the next Bill Gates." My mother would add her trademark passive-aggressive comment. "We just worry about your future, sweetheart. Not everyone can be special enough to succeed in something so unreliable." I moved out at 18, supporting myself through college with 3 jobs while my siblings had their apartments and tuition fully paid for. I slept 4 hours a night, ate instant noodles for weeks straight, and never asked my parents for a penny, even when I had to visit the emergency room for exhaustion. Pride and stubborn determination became my only real family. The irony is that by 30, I had built a software company that out-earned both my brother's law firm partnership and my sister's medical practice combined. My company, Innovate Solutions, grew from just me in a tiny apartment to a team of 40 talented developers with clients across North America. Last year, we cleared over $2 million in profit. Did my success finally change how my parents saw me? Not in the slightest. At family gatherings, they would introduce Ethan as our son, the brilliant attorney, and Olivia as our daughter, the life-saving doctor, while I was just Michael. No title, no acknowledgement of my achievements. They would politely change the subject whenever anyone asked about my business. Over the past few years, I had been making attempts at reconciliation, not because I needed their approval anymore, but because I thought having a relationship with my aging parents was important. I started accepting more invitations to family events, sending thoughtful gifts, and calling more regularly. What my family didn't know was that I had also been helping them financially. 3 years ago, when my father had to take early retirement due to health issues and they were struggling with mortgage payments, I anonymously set up an account that deposited $3,500 monthly into their bank account. My parents assumed it was some kind of retirement benefit they had forgotten about. When Olivia needed a down payment for her house last year, I gave her $60,000 through a lawyer who presented it as a medical professional grant. And when Ethan struggled with student loan payments after a messy divorce, I quietly paid off $90,000 of his debt, making it look like a bank forgiveness program. Most recently, when my parents mentioned they wanted to celebrate their 40th anniversary but couldn't afford anything fancy, I secretly arranged to pay for half of a lavish party at the Oak Room, the most exclusive restaurant in the city. I told the event planner to credit it to the family, so my siblings could share in the gesture without knowing I had contributed most of the money. I honestly thought this celebration might be the turning point. Maybe seeing everyone happy together would finally heal old wounds. There had been hints in recent weeks that something was off, though. Hushed phone conversations that ended when I entered the room. Group text messages between my siblings and parents that excluded me. But I convinced myself I was being paranoid, that years of feeling like an outsider had made me overly sensitive. The week before the anniversary dinner, I bought them a pair of tickets for a luxury European cruise, a dream trip they had talked about for years but could never afford. I wrapped the gift beautifully, added a heartfelt card, and felt genuinely excited to give it to them. For once, I would be able to openly show my love and support instead of hiding behind anonymous donations. How wrong I was. The morning of my parents' anniversary celebration, I woke up with a sense of hopeful anticipation I hadn't felt about a family event in years. I spent extra time getting ready, choosing a sleek charcoal suit that projected both success and appropriateness for the occasion. Looking in the mirror, I hoped that tonight might finally be the night my parents saw me as the accomplished man I had become, not the disappointing son who had chosen the wrong path. The gift, the tickets for the cruise, was nestled in a handsome leather travel wallet inside a small box wrapped in elegant silver paper. I had even coordinated with the travel agent to have a special folder with all the excursion options they could choose from: wine tasting in Tuscany, a private tour of the Colosseum, a gondola ride in Venice. All of it paid in advance. $10,000 that I was happy to spend if it meant seeing genuine joy on their faces. I arrived at the Oak Room 30 minutes before the scheduled start time. The restaurant was on the top floor of a downtown skyscraper, its panoramic windows reflecting the golden sunset over Lake Michigan. Valet attendants in crisp uniforms greeted guests as they arrived, and a doorman held open heavy glass doors. Inside, modern art adorned the walls and soft jazz played from unseen speakers. This was exactly the kind of place my parents loved, where prestige was served alongside the food. "Good evening. I'm here for the Harrison anniversary celebration," I told the hostess, referring to my parents by their last name. She consulted her tablet, scrolling through the list with a polite smile. "I'm sorry, I don't see that name on the guest list. May I have your name again?" "Michael Harrison," I replied, a small knot forming in my stomach. "I'm William and Eleanor's son." The hostess checked again, her smile faltering slightly. "I'm sorry, Mr. Harrison, but your name is not on the list provided by the hosts." "There must be some mistake," I said, forcing a laugh. "It's my parents' anniversary party." As we spoke, I glanced past her into the main private dining room. Through the doorway, I could see my family already gathered. My father in his best navy suit, my mother radiant in an emerald dress, Ethan and Olivia standing nearby with their spouses. Everyone was laughing, champagne flutes in hand. There were other guests, too, family, friends, and colleagues I recognized. At least 40 people were already there, laughing, drinking, celebrating. Something was very, very wrong. The party wasn't scheduled to begin for another 20 minutes, yet everyone was already there enjoying themselves without me. Had the time been changed? Had I somehow missed a message? I made a decision. I'll just go in and speak with my parents. I'm sure this is just a miscommunication. Before the hostess could stop me, I walked past her into the dining room, the gift box clutched in my hands. As I approached the gathering, my mother was the first to notice me. Her smile froze, her eyes widening in what looked unmistakably like alarm. She quickly touched my father's arm, whispering something to him. He turned, and the jovial expression he had been wearing transformed into a cold, hard stare. Ethan and Olivia exchanged glances, their body language shifting uncomfortably. Other guests began to notice the sudden tension, conversations faltering as attention turned toward the unfolding scene. "Michael," my father said, his voice carrying in the now quieting room. "What are you doing here?" I felt dozens of eyes on me as I stood there, confusion giving way to a sickening realization. "It's Mom and Dad's anniversary," I said, my voice sounding smaller than I intended. "Why wouldn't I be here?" My mother stepped forward, her smile strained and not reaching her eyes. "Sweetie, we didn't expect you. This is just a small gathering for close family and friends." Close family. Two simple words, but they hit me harder than any punch. If this was for close family, what did that make me? Olivia wouldn't meet my eyes. Ethan studied his shoes. Neither spoke up to welcome me or express surprise at my absence from the guest list. "There must be some mistake," I said again, the gift box now feeling heavy in my hands. I even helped with the arrangements. My father's expression darkened further. "There is no mistake, Michael. You are not invited to this event." The silence that followed my father's words seemed to stretch forever. Around us, guests pretended not to listen while obviously straining to hear every word. My mother fidgeted with her diamond necklace, a nervous habit she'd had my entire life. Olivia examined her manicure with sudden, intense interest, while Ethan took a long drink from his champagne flute, avoiding eye contact entirely. "I don't understand," I said, my voice steady despite the storm of emotions brewing inside. "This is a family celebration. I am your son." My father stepped closer, lowering his voice, but not enough to prevent nearby guests from hearing. "This event is for people who are actually part of our lives, Michael. Not someone who drops in when it's convenient and then disappears." The irony of his statement was staggering. I had been the one making all the effort at reconciliation for years. I had been the one calling, visiting, and reaching out consistently. "That's not fair," I protested. "I have been trying to be part of this family. I call every week. I visit whenever you'll let me." My mother finally spoke up, her voice syrupy sweet, but her eyes cold. "Darling, this is not the time or place to discuss family matters. Perhaps we can talk another day. This evening is special for us." I noticed several of their friends exchanging uncomfortable glances. Mrs. Gable, my mother's bridge club friend, actually looked sympathetic, while Dr. Miller, my father's golf buddy, studied his wine glass with unusual concentration. "I brought you a gift," I said, holding out the carefully wrapped box. "For your anniversary." My mother made no move to take it. "You can drop it with the others," she said, gesturing vaguely toward a table in the corner where several packages were stacked. I stood there, gift in hand, feeling increasingly like an intruder at an event I had helped finance. The weight of public rejection in front of their social circle made my chest tighten painfully. "I think you should leave, Michael," my father said, loud enough for everyone to hear, making sure my humiliation was complete. "This is embarrassing for everyone." "Embarrassing?" I repeated, unable to keep the hurt from my voice. "I'm embarrassing to you?" "You always did have a flair for the dramatic," he replied dismissively. "Always making scenes, always demanding attention." I looked to my siblings for support, for any sign that they disagreed with this treatment, but found none. Olivia was whispering something to her husband, while Ethan had mysteriously found the need to check his phone. "Fine," I said, my voice now barely above a whisper. "I'll leave. But first, you should know that I paid for half of this party. The venue, the catering, the champagne you're drinking right now. That was me." My father's face flushed red, whether from embarrassment or anger, I couldn't tell. "That's ridiculous. Ethan and Olivia arranged everything." When I didn't back down or retract my statement, his expression changed. Something ugly passed across his features. "Security," he called out, gesturing to a staff member near the door. "We have an unwanted guest who needs to be escorted out." A murmur rippled through the assembled guests. The security guard, a tall man in a black suit, approached uncertainly, clearly uncomfortable with the situation. "Sir?" he questioned, looking between us. "Remove this person," my father said, pointing at me as if I were a stranger. "He's crashing our private event and causing a disturbance." "Dad," I said, shock making my voice crack. "You can't be serious." That was when he delivered the blow I will never forget. Loud enough for everyone to hear, clear enough that there could be no misunderstanding. He said, "Get this beggar out of here. He's nothing but an embarrassment, showing up uninvited, claiming to have paid for things, probably hoping for a handout." Gasps came from several guests. Even the security guard looked taken aback. "Mr. Harrison," the guard began, "perhaps we could handle this more discreetly." But my father was past the point of discretion. "Do your job," he demanded, "or I'll speak to your manager about the kind of establishment they're running." I looked at my mother, searching for any sign of maternal protection, any indication she would stand up to him. But she simply looked away, her social mask firmly in place. "It's okay," I told the guard, finding dignity from somewhere deep inside. "I'll see myself out." I placed my gift on a nearby table, straightened my suit jacket, and walked toward the exit with measured steps. Every instinct screamed at me to run, to escape the humiliation as quickly as possible, but I would not give my father the satisfaction of seeing me flee. As I passed the hostess stand, I caught a glimpse of myself in a decorative mirror. Somehow, I still looked put together. No one would guess from my appearance the devastation I felt inside. It wasn't until I was alone in the cold silence of the parking garage that the facade finally cracked and the tears came. I sat behind the wheel, shaking, as 32 years of seeking approval and love crashed down around me. Through the windshield, I could see the glittering city lights. Up in that restaurant, my family would continue their celebration as if I had never existed. I started the engine and drove away, leaving behind not just the restaurant, but the last remnants of hope that my family would ever truly accept me. The drive home passed in a blur of traffic and tears. I kept replaying my father's words in my mind. Beggar. Embarrassment. Uninvited. Each repetition was like a fresh cut, sharp and painful. By the time I pulled into my driveway, the initial shock had begun to harden into something else. Not quite anger yet, but a cold clarity that felt unfamiliar. I sat in my car for several minutes, staring at the home I had built for myself without their help. The contemporary two-story house with large windows and a professionally landscaped yard was physical proof of what I had accomplished on my own. Inside, I headed straight for the kitchen, pulled a bottle of bourbon from the cabinet, and poured a generous glass. I carried it to my home office, settled into my leather chair, opened my laptop, and began to take stock of exactly what I had been doing for my family. First, I logged into my banking portal. There it was, the standing monthly transfer of $3,500 to my parents' account, disguised as a retirement supplement. $42,000 annually that they had never questioned or acknowledged. I had been making these payments for 3 years, which totaled $126,000 so far. Next, I opened a folder labeled Family Support and reviewed the documents inside. There was the $60,000 grant to Olivia for her house down payment, the $90,000 student loan payoff for Ethan, and the insurance premiums I had been covering for my parents, approximately $900 monthly for the past 2 years. Then there were the smaller expenses that added up, the subscription services I paid for them, the housekeeping service that came twice weekly to my parents' home, the landscaper who maintained their pristine yard, the meal delivery service I had arranged when my mother complained about cooking. Together, these added another $15,000 annually. And finally, the anniversary celebration itself. I pulled up the invoice from the event planner. The total cost was $20,000. My contribution was exactly $10,000 for a party where I wasn't even welcome. As I tallied everything up, a text message notification appeared on my phone. It was from my cousin Jessica, who had apparently been invited to the party. "Hey, where are you? Everyone's asking. Your parents said you had a work emergency." So, they were already spinning a story to explain my absence. A work emergency. How convenient. Another text came through, this one from my Aunt Carol. "Mike, are you okay? Just got to your parents' party and heard you couldn't make it. Call me later." They had invited extended family members, but not their own son. The realization was like ice water in my veins. I took a deep breath and made a decision. Opening my banking app, I canceled the monthly transfer to my parents. Then I sent an email to the property management company handling their landscaping and housekeeping services, terminating the contracts effective immediately. One by one, I canceled every subscription, every service, every financial support mechanism I had put in place. Next, I contacted the travel agency and canceled the European cruise tickets. The agent was apologetic but understanding when I explained there had been a family emergency. The $10,000 refund would be processed within 3 to 5 business days. I sent a brief, professional email to my family accountant. Effective immediately, I am withdrawing all financial support previously provided to William and Eleanor Harrison, Ethan Harrison, and Olivia Hayes. Please ensure no further transfers are made from any of my accounts to these individuals. Any automatic payments already established should be terminated at once. The accountant responded within minutes, confirming he would take care of it right away. Finally, I called the event planner for my parents' anniversary party. "Amanda, this is Michael Harrison." "Michael, is everything okay? I thought you'd be at the celebration by now." "There's been a change of plans," I said, keeping my voice even. "I need you to inform the venue that my portion of the funding has been withdrawn." "Withdrawn? But the event is happening right now. The initial payments have already been processed. Then they will need to collect the remaining balance from whoever is hosting the event. As far as I'm concerned, that is no longer me." After hanging up, I set my phone to Do Not Disturb and poured another glass of bourbon. The systematic dismantling of my financial support had taken less than an hour. In less than an hour, I had severed financial ties worth over $75,000 and shut off the monthly pipeline that kept them comfortable. I felt a strange mixture of liberation and grief. On one hand, it was empowering to finally stop the one-sided giving that had characterized our relationship. On the other, It represented the final severing of hope that things would ever change. As I sat there in the growing darkness, I realized I had spent years buying the approval and love of people who were incapable of giving it freely. Tonight had simply made visible what had always been true. In their eyes, I would never be enough. Tomorrow would be soon enough to face the consequences of my actions. Tonight, I would grieve for the family I had always wanted, but never truly had. I woke the next morning to sunlight streaming through my bedroom windows and an unusual silence from my phone. Normally, my mornings began with the ping of email notifications and text messages, but I had left it on Do Not Disturb overnight. When I finally reached for my phone and turned off the setting, it immediately began to vibrate continuously as notifications flooded in. 41 missed calls, 22 voicemails, 53 text messages. The first voicemail was from my father, timestamped at 11:30 p.m. last night. His voice was slurred slightly from what I assumed was expensive champagne. "Michael, the restaurant is saying there's some problem with the payment. Call me back immediately." The second voicemail, from 12:15 a.m., was less controlled. "What the hell do you think you're doing? The venue manager is threatening to charge us an additional $10,000. Fix this now." By the third voicemail, at 1:20 a.m., he had progressed to outright threats. "If you do not resolve this situation by morning, there will be serious consequences. Your mother is in tears. Is that what you wanted?" The text messages followed a similar pattern, starting with demands and escalating to pleas as the night progressed. My mother's texts began appearing around 2 a.m., emotional appeals about how I was ruining their special night and how they didn't understand why I would do something so vindictive. Ethan texted at 3:12 a.m., "What the actual hell, Mike? Mom and Dad had to put the rest of the party on their credit card. Dad is having chest pains from the stress. Is this because you weren't invited? Grow up." By morning, the tone had shifted dramatically. My father's latest voicemail was subdued, almost unrecognizable. "Michael, we need to talk. Please call me. It's important." My mother had sent a text at 7:30 a.m. "Sweetie, please call us. We're very confused about what is happening. Your father is worried about the mortgage." I set the phone down and went to make coffee. My hands were steady despite the emotional storm their messages had unleashed. As the coffee brewed, filling my kitchen with its rich aroma, I contemplated my next move. Part of me wanted to respond immediately, to explain exactly why I had canceled everything. Another part, the wounded child who had always sought their approval, wanted to apologize and fix everything. I did neither. Instead, I got dressed for work, ate a proper breakfast, and left for my office as if it were any other day. My company wouldn't run itself, and I had client meetings scheduled that I refused to cancel because of family drama. Throughout the morning, the calls continued. I instructed my assistant to tell any family members who called the office that I was unavailable. By lunchtime, my parents had apparently contacted every mutual acquaintance they could think of, as I began receiving concerned messages from cousins, family friends, and even my mother's hairdresser. It was nearly 5 p.m. when my assistant buzzed me. "Mr. Harrison, your father is here. He doesn't have an appointment, but he is insisting on seeing you." A knot formed in my stomach, but I kept my voice steady. "Tell him I'm in a meeting and unavailable." 10 minutes later, she buzzed again, sounding uncomfortable. "He's refusing to leave. He says he'll wait in the lobby all night if necessary. Call security and have him escorted out if he becomes disruptive," I instructed, then added more gently. "It's not your problem to solve, Lisa. You can go home for the day if you're uncomfortable." But before she could respond, my office door burst open. My father stood there, looking nothing like the imposing figure from my childhood. His normally immaculate appearance was disheveled, his eyes bloodshot from either lack of sleep or tears. I couldn't tell which. "Michael," he said, his voice ragged. "We need to talk." I remained seated behind my desk. "This is my workplace. You can't just barge in here. You left me no choice. You won't answer your phone. What have you done?" "I think you know exactly what I have done," I replied, surprised by how calm I felt. "I have stopped paying for a family that doesn't want me." He took a step forward. "This is childish revenge. Your mother is beside herself. The mortgage company called this morning. The landscaper showed up to say his services have been terminated. What are you trying to prove?" "I'm not trying to prove anything. I am simply no longer willing to financially support people who would call security to remove me from a party I helped pay for, who would call their own son a beggar in front of their friends. His face flushed. That, I was upset. You showed up uninvited to our anniversary celebration. A celebration I contributed $10,000 toward. He stared at me, clearly struggling to process this information. What are you talking about? Ethan and Olivia arranged everything. Did they tell you that? Because I have the receipts showing exactly what I paid. Just like I have documentation of every mortgage payment, every bill, every support payment I've made for this family over the past 3 years. For perhaps the first time in my life, I saw my father at a loss for words. He sank into the chair across from my desk, suddenly looking every one of his 68 years. Why wouldn't you tell us you were helping? He finally asked. Would it have mattered? Would you have treated me any differently? Or would you have just expected it, like you expect everything else? He had no answer. And after a long, tense silence, I stood up. I have a dinner meeting. I need to leave. Michael, please. Your mother and I can't afford the mortgage on our own. We're on a fixed income. Then perhaps it's time to downsize, I said, gathering my things. Or ask your successful children, Ethan and Olivia, for help. I'm sure they'd be happy to support the parents they actually respect. As I walked toward the door, he made one final attempt. We are still your parents. I paused, hand on the doorknob. Yes, you are, and nothing can change that. But being family doesn't give you the right to treat me like I don't matter. It doesn't entitle you to my money or my support. I left him sitting there, and as the elevator doors closed behind me, I realized that for the first time in my adult life, I had spoken my truth to my father without backing down or seeking his approval. For 2 long weeks, silence hung between us like a wall. Those 14 days were strange, filled with a mixture of grief and liberation. The first to reach out was surprisingly my brother, Ethan. His text was simple. Can we meet for coffee? Just us. We arranged to meet at a quiet cafe near my office. He was already seated with 2 coffees when I walked in. I got you a black Americano, he said. Still your go-to, right? The fact he remembered touched me unexpectedly. How are things? I asked. Complicated, he admitted. Mom and Dad are downsizing. They put the house on the market last week. They can't afford it without your help, and neither Olivia nor I can cover that kind of expense. He paused. I never knew, Mike, about everything you were doing for them. For us. I want to apologize for not standing up for you at the party, for not questioning why you weren't invited. It was wrong. For the first time, I saw my brother not as the favored son, but as someone trapped in a role he felt he had to play. I always envied you, you know, he said suddenly. Your freedom, your courage to pursue what you wanted despite their disapproval. I followed the path they laid out for me, and now I'm in a career I don't even enjoy. My sister Olivia was next. She admitted she had always felt pressure to be the perfect daughter, and my independent success threatened the family narrative. It was easier when you were the struggling one, she confessed. When you succeeded, it was easier to push you away than to question the story we'd all been told. My mother came to my house the following Sunday, alone. She spoke softly, almost like she was carrying a heavy secret. The house is under contract. We found a small 2-bedroom condo. Then her voice dropped to barely a whisper. Michael, you had the courage and the talent I never allowed myself to pursue. I gave up my own dreams to raise a family, and every time you succeeded, it reminded me of what I had lost. It was easier to dismiss your achievements than to face my own regrets. Her honesty cracked something open in me, not with anger this time, but with compassion that finally began to replace years of hurt. My father was the last to reach out. We met at a park. I've never been good at apologies, he began. The things I said at the restaurant, it was unforgivable. When you walked in, looking so successful, I panicked. We had deliberately excluded you, and being confronted with that in front of our friends was humiliating. So I lashed out. It wasn't a perfect apology, but it was an acknowledgement. The truth is, he said, I've never understood you. Your choices, your determination. It frightened me because I couldn't control it. And what I can't control, I've always tried to diminish. 2 months after the disastrous anniversary party, we gathered for a family dinner at my parents' new condo. It was a simple meal, not a lavish celebration. Ethan brought his new girlfriend, a music teacher. The dinner was awkward at times, but for the first time in my life, it was also honest. We were learning how to be a family without the old dynamics, without the roles we had played for so long. I didn't resume the financial support, and they didn't ask. We began building a relationship based on respect, not obligation. The experience taught me something profound about self-worth. For years, I had tried to buy the love and acceptance my family seemed unwilling to give freely. In walking away, in refusing to continue funding my own exclusion, I had finally claimed my true value. True family, I learned, is not about financial support. It's about mutual respect, honest communication, and the willingness to see each other as we truly are. If you have ever found yourself compromising your worth for acceptance or giving more than you receive in relationships, remember that your value does not depend on others recognizing it. Sometimes the bravest thing you can do is walk away, not out of anger, but out of self-respect. I would love to hear your stories about setting boundaries with family members. Have you ever had to make a difficult choice between keeping the peace and standing up for yourself? Please share your experiences in the comments below. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this video with anyone who might need to hear this message today. Thank you for listening to my story. And remember, you are worthy of respect and love exactly as you are.